Hey there, I just want to do a massive hello and welcome to the High Vibe Healers podcast. If you would like to be interviewed, if you are a high vibe healer, a coach, or wellness practitioner in Australia or New Zealand, I will leave a link in the description or the caption of this video/podcast. And if you know anybody who would be perfect for the podcast, please feel free to share it with them. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe or rate and review us. It will really help us to grow and reach more healers in the ANZ area. So thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy this interview. Hi, Sally Ann. It is fantastic to meet you finally. I would love to just get you to introduce yourself to everybody and tell us what you do, a little bit about yourself.
For sure. I'm Sally Ann. I'm a wife with 6 kids, one grandchild. 4 of my kids are now adults, but I still have 4 living at home.
Mhm.
I burnt out myself. I've been a counsellor for 30 plus years, but I burnt out myself 9 years ago.
Mhm.
And my journey to recovery led me to throw out a whole lot of the tools that I used to use as a counsellor, and I found new tools which helped me out of my burnout recovery, and now I use these tools in my practice to help others.
That's fantastic. So, is there a specific demographic that you target?
Look, I do help anybody. But generally I do have like a number of mums at the
Mhm.
moment
Okay.
who were probably where I was at that time ago, just being a carer
Mhm.
and not having any time and space for yourself, and feeling like you're overwhelmed and anxious and fatigued all the time, and how to actually get yourself untangled from that mess. So I do have a number of mums, but I've also got that I counsel, and yeah,
So you're,
mix of
you,
people.
oh, sorry, you specifically target burnout. And just whenever I was working as an art therapist, burnout was really something, a term that was held for work stress and just being really burnt out from the effects of your career, really. Do you think that that term has become a little bit all encompassing now to just include the mothers and the parents and just people in general who are doing all of the things and just not taking care of themselves or taking the time to realign their energies?
Yeah, absolutely. I see burnout as an inability to sit down on the inside. So even if you go and sit down and watch TV, you're not resting. When you go to bed and sleep and you wake up fatigued the next day because your body's just not resting. And it's really a state of chronic stress. And so that can relate to workplace stress because, there's a lot of expectations, feeling the need to work overtime and give and give and give in the workplace. That's a part of it. But there's also carer burnout when it
Hmm.
comes to mums, when it comes to having to juggle work and kids, and particularly for mums that have got neurodivergent kids, and there's a lot of pressure around that. And also in the helping profession, there's a lot of burnout because there's a great deal of empathy and connection with people that are really struggling. And so that, in the therapy field as well, there can be a lot of burnout because it comes down to the fact that you can't sit down on the inside, but you also are not connected with what you need, or you don't prioritize what you need. And so you're always giving out. So that can be work, home, any environment, really.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree with that. So I would say that burnout, because I've experienced it myself as well,
Mm.
it often feels like just a massive barrier, not only to personal success, but anything that you may be manifesting, even if it's small, even if it's like a little weekend away. You, if you're in a constant state of stress, it is changing your DNA at a cellular level.
Mm.
So, what would be your like first aid kit in terms of burnout recovery?
Mm. Well, I would start. The first question I ask somebody when they come through the door is, what are you doing that you shouldn't be doing? Because
Hmm.
there's a lot that we can feel the obligation to do, or we think maybe other people aren't going to do it as well. So we jump in, even when it extends to mums, like we're doing things for our kids that they can actually be responsible and do
Yeah.
themselves. And so there are things that we're doing that we shouldn't be doing. And then the next question is, well, what are we doing well that we shouldn't actually be doing? Because just because we can do it well doesn't mean that we actually need to be doing that.
Yeah.
And so
Absolutely.
I had to make some massive, massive lifestyle changes, and take a really good look at my life and actually stop things that were draining, look at things that were regenerating, how to actually regenerate myself. And I wasn't in touch with who I was, and I wasn't in touch with my body, and I didn't actually even know that. And also, I think that a big, big part of it was when I let go of some things, it was about actually sitting in the guilt, because so much of what I was doing was guilt motivated, and go, you know what, I'm feeling guilty. And rather than feel the urge to, oh, well, I've got to do something so that I don't feel guilty, I had to learn to actually just sit in that guilt and acknowledge it and accept that, yes, I feel guilty when I'm not doing or serving or caring, in those spaces. So as far as first aid kit, I think the first things are actually making some radical lifestyle changes and connecting with yourself, and some of those mindfulness tools to connect with yourself, body scans and heart breathing. I love to be able to just start to connect back into your nervous system, checking in with your body. I didn't notice if I was hungry or thirsty, like, oh, dry mouth, that means that I might be thirsty,
Mm-hmm.
you know, just some of those basic things in
Yeah.
reconnecting with your body. And then once you've sort of gone on that journey, then looking at some of the faulty beliefs. Like, I believed that self-care was selfish, and I had to look at, okay, where did I get that belief from? Why do I believe that, and is that belief valid? And then actually shift it to something that is healthy, which is self-care is essential, because that's like putting on your oxygen mask first when you're in an aeroplane before you help other passengers. Like, if I am not regenerated and energized myself, I've actually got nothing to give
Yeah.
somebody else.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I often use that analogy of the put your own oxygen mask on first, because how are you supposed to pour from an empty cup? You just can't do it. And
Yes.
whenever I had my experience, the first thing I went to was gratitude lists, just starting small, starting slow every day, and just be finding as many things as I could to be grateful for. And
Yes.
just I ended up creating, like, designing gratitude journals for people as well, which felt good and just built upon me climbing back out of that hole. But I think journaling was probably one of the most impactful, that along with meditation. And as you said, breathing into the heart, those were huge. They were massive game changers. And when you accompany that with someone with experience who can guide you out of that hole, oh my God, it just everything changes. So just
Absolutely.
to anybody watching who does experience, if you know someone who's experiencing burnout, or you yourself are experiencing burnout, there are people here to help you. Sally Ann obviously has a fantastic practice, and she can help you excuse me, with burnout. Almost got my words out. So you emphasize the importance of self-acceptance in your work, because I follow you on all the platforms. So how do you help clients to like address and overcome those kind of burnout blocks of just not taking care of themselves and processing the fact that they are where they are and this is happening, and sitting in that grief or the guilt, sorry, as you said, so that they can more effectively align with whatever it is that they're trying to achieve in life? How do you help them to overcome those?
Well, what I found, I saw a counsellor when I was in burnout, he is an elderly gentleman and he's now retired, but he had lots and lots of experience with
Mm-hmm.
burnout. He burnt out himself when he was 40, and then he was one of the first burnout specialists
Oh,
in
wow.
Australia um, so many years ago. And so he's got a couple of tools which after I went through it myself, when I have to learn how to do this. And it's like you carry two bags through life,
Mm-hmm.
and one bag is your uniqueness, which is the filter that you see life through. And just like you're born with physical characteristics, this is your temperament characteristics that are your natural tendencies that you're born with. And often we actually don't know what they are. And bag B is our history. So that's everything that happens to us once we're born, how that actually impacts us in our life. And so I have got a tool that's called a circuit profile, which is like an emotional X-ray. So we can unpack the bags and we can very, very clearly put in front of you, these are what your deep emotional needs are. And this is why these events from your history impacted you in the way that they did, because those needs were either unmet or they were damaged because of what's happened as you were growing up. And
Mm-hmm.
actually being empowered to know these are my deep emotional needs and I can actually meet these for myself. And then I'm not reliant on you. If you say something mean to me and I get rejected, I'm not reliant on you to actually bring that self-acceptance. I can say, no, actually, I can meet my own deep emotional needs. We're not so needy on other people. And so once we see all of this in the circuit profile, including the faulty beliefs that we've developed as a result of some of those interactions growing up,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the distortions in our identity where we feel like it's not okay to be me. And so
Mm-hmm.
we mask. And that was a big thing for me. I took off my mask. I'm okay to be who I am. I'm not going to try to be somebody else. I'm not going to try to um, you know, be somebody that I'm not. And so I can very clearly help people see that. And then we can map a very personalized journey because of their filter and because of their experiences. We can map a journey to shift those faulty beliefs and bring them into freedom to actually be themselves, take their masks off. And it was revolutionary for me when I experienced it. And I've just got to learn how to do this to help people. And it's an incredible tool.
Do you think that whenever people need to work on their self-acceptance, that self-belief is just non-existent at that point? Or have you
Mm,
met people that, well, maybe it's not self-belief, but they're playing as if they have it? Does that make sense?
yeah. So I think that some people definitely mask and they mask for acceptance. And I heard Gabor Mate talk recently about people pleasing, and he said basically we trade our authenticity for acceptance. And so to please you, I've got to, I don't know, put on an Irish accent and have lots of color, but I'm not a color person. And so
Yeah.
that wouldn't be me.
Yeah.
And I'm not Irish, so that wouldn't be me. And so we play games to get that acceptance from other people, but we can't, we're looking for others to accept us because we feel like it's actually not okay to be me. And so starting to actually get to know ourselves and go, you know what, authentically, this is what I like, and it's okay to like something different to somebody else. And I don't need to compare myself. I'm actually complete just as I am. And I bring something to the world that is unique that other people don't bring to the world. And it's it can be very confronting to
Mm,
actually
yeah.
go through that journey. It can get messy. It gets messy. It got messy for me. It gets messy for my clients as well to actually go through that journey. But once you're through it and you're on the other side, living in authenticity actually brings internal rest and it brings personal freedom at a whole another level.
I just the way you spoke about that reminded me of something that I heard the other day. And I learned that buffaloes do not like the rain. They have naturally evolved now that when they see rain clouds or storm clouds, that they run towards it because they have learned that whenever they run towards it, they are in the storm for the least amount of time. Whereas if
Mm,
they run away from it, they're running with the clouds and they are stuck in the storm for the longest amount of time, which was
mm.
absolutely fascinating.
That's a great
And it
picture.
yeah, and it is so apt for talking about personal journeys like recovery from burnout because we can run away from it so much.
Mm,
I wasn't a runner. I was like, I am not feeling like this every day. What do I have to do? Like, I cannot sit in this, whatever this is, and feel like this every single day. That's horrible. But I know that some people out there, they self-medicate, so they're able to do that. I couldn't. I
mm,
don't drink or anything like that. So there was nothing for me to do apart from maybe eat, but even that wouldn't have brought me the kind of peace that I needed. Because as you
yeah.
said, you can't sit, even if you're sitting down, you're just ruminating constantly. And that's the
Mm,
biggest thing. So you have had such a profound journey yourself through burnout, through family trauma and through health challenges. How have these experiences shaped your own approach to counselling and personal growth?
absolutely. So I burnt out 9 years ago, and to be honest, that was the start. I felt like I was drowning then at the bottom of the ocean. And then we had one thing after another. We had family trauma after family trauma. After then, I had a breast cancer recurrence 2 years ago, and it was literally like I was just getting pushed down the bottom of the cliff and drowning again. And um, I had to see, I eventually learning to accept myself and just check in with myself. That was like the first thing is like, okay, how am I doing? How am I going with this emotionally? How is my body responding? What do I actually need right now? And acting on that was a big thing. Learning regulating tools was a big thing, but also bigger picture, it had to be that when we're struggling and when we're suffering, we often feel like it's just this rampage and this bombardment of pain and suffering, but there is a purpose in it, and to actually come out the other side and say, you know what, there is purpose in the pain, and it's almost like God's permitting and preventing things as we go along in life, but they're all to actually draw out the authentic truth in us and to bring us into our purpose and to bring greater meaning into our lives, and to actually see from that perspective that there's a purpose in pain is is very liberating. To then go, okay, I'm actually not drowning. There's a purpose to this, and I'm actually just trusting that I'm going to be brought back to shore, and I don't have to do anything. I just have to rest in who I am, and that will all unfold.
Yes, I'm sorry to hear about your experience with breast cancer. It's awful. But I'm glad that you're here with us now and
Yeah,
you're
thank you.
helping as many people as you can. So just talking on the self-regulating tools, I know that you
Mm,
also create self-therapy resources. It's not just like one-on-one with clients. So could you
yes.
share a little bit about your favorite resources that you would recommend to your clients so that and
Mm,
we will link to your shop in the description or the caption as well so
yeah,
people can
thank you.
get to it.
So because I had breast cancer 2 years ago and closed down my practice, I
Mhm,
was thinking, okay, how can I, if I don't get to work again, how can I actually give people the tools that I
mhm,
use? And so I developed, there's a couple of products in the shop that are like if you're sitting down in a one-on-one session with me, the
mhm.
questions that I would take you through. So they're crucial ones. They're on limiting beliefs. And the second one is deep emotional needs and identifying those and how you can feel those yourself. So they're like the self-therapy sessions. And then there's a lot of journals, like you mentioned, a gratitude journal before. I've got self-reflection journals. I've got journals for trauma. I've got some ADHD um, tools as well. And
Mhm.
so all of these are things that I've developed out of the tools that I've learned, so that people can access them and actually find some real freedom.
Yeah,
So yeah.
they're so beneficial. I think it's so underrated because there are There are so many like bloggers and influencers out there who offer journaling printables with journal prompts. But whenever you get journal prompts that are developed by somebody with a background in psychology and who knows what your needs are right now, again, a total game changer whenever it comes to your recovery. And just, I'll repeat it till I'm blue in the face. You are not by yourself. You're you're not. It does feel like it sometimes whenever you're in that space, but there are so many people out there who are cheering for you and your success, and people like Sally Ann creating those fantastic resources. I myself have resources, but they're more towards clearing limiting beliefs for manifestation purposes. But again, whenever you find the right person to provide you with the resources, everything changes because it just unlocks so many things. And your mind can, you could be writing in the journal and then you're like, oh my God, I didn't know I've been holding on to that for 20 years. Like it's crazy how things can just reveal themselves just by talking about something quite mundane and responding to a prompt. And the more that you write, I find that the easier it gets because you get into the flow state. Your brain is in that alpha mode and you're able to connect more easily with the subconscious. And when it comes to family trauma, I, like yourself, a couple of years ago, I experienced just one thing after another. And that's nearly around the time when I burnt out in 2020.
Mm,
It can be such, it can be, there are so many things going on. And because they're in your family, they are directly in front of your face, so to
mm,
speak. And they can be such a block in manifestations, in just achievements, in recovery, no matter what it is that's going on where you want to take a step forward. It is so important that you focus on yourself, like Sally Ann was talking
absolutely.
about at the
Yeah.
beginning. So, how do you guide clients through healing family wounds so that they can manifest more efficiently and just achieve whatever it is they're trying to achieve?
Mm. So I look at 6 areas. So we look at what you believe about yourself, what your
Mm,
identity is, your thoughts, your emotions, and your coping mechanisms. And we look at each of those areas, unpack them in a lot of detail,
mhm,
and help you see, okay, this was serving you. It was like growing up with family wounds. It's a survival response at the time. Like you it actually helped you survive. So it was
mhm,
important at the time, but it's no longer serving you. So
yeah,
actually, what's no longer serving you, and just very gently and um, very empathically walking people through, okay, what would that actually look like if that was different? And, just stepping them through very slowly. And I think one thing you said before with the family trauma, one significant thing that I had to shift was I
mhm,
can't fix myself and I can't fix other people. It really is a journey. And with, wanting to, I used to very much jump in with, I can fix it. I'll give you this piece of advice and I can fix it. And with the family trauma that happened, I couldn't fix it. And
mhm,
so I really had to just sit alongside those family members and support, love, accept for what they are and give them the complete space to work through things at their own pace. And that's freeing in itself because you're not feeling the pressure to have to, you know, to have to fix and to have to
yes.
advise. Yeah.
Yes, I think a lot of people with a background in counseling or therapy or art therapy have that in them. Because I would often have to be like, nope, zip your lip, Claire. This is not your yours to unpack. And it, it just whenever you were talking, I was reminded of a meditation I was provided by my own counselor back when I experienced burnout. And like your two bags analogy, mine was a backpack. And in the backpack were bricks of all the limiting beliefs that you were carrying. And just as the bricks were being released after that meditation, I felt so much lighter and so
Mm,
much more able. Because before I just felt like I can't do anything. I can't even be arsed to go make a cup of tea. That
yeah,
it can be that kind of fatigue that just wears you
absolutely.
down. Yeah. So yeah, it's so important whenever we're on these journeys that you remember in the great words of Abraham Hicks, you can never get it wrong and you'll never get it done. And it doesn't matter which order you put those in, you can never get it done and you can never get it wrong. And it
Mm-hmm.
is an eternal journey of self-discovery. And it's almost like there are different levels that you get to. And you're like,
Absolutely.
okay, I've cleared that now. Oh, these are new. So let's clear that. And it's just, to me, it's a constant journey of unlearning because
Yes.
we learn so much whenever our brains were little sponges. And it's like, now I have to unpick all that. Even though people had the best intentions at the time, they
Mm.
they weren't being guided. So they didn't know. And their
No.
parents didn't know, even though they were doing the best that they
Yeah.
could,
They're doing
you
the
know,
best they can. Yeah.
with what they have. Yeah, especially
Absolutely.
that. Yeah. So your your personal journey through the family traumas and through the health challenges, it really speaks to your resilience. And I was just wondering your own opinions on cultivating resilience and overcoming those personal hurdles. How does that contribute to the healing journey?
Mm. Resilience is one of those words that can be quite loaded, I think,
It can. Yeah.
because people can feel that there's an expectation with that. Oh, well, I'm feeling like I have to lie in bed all day and I'm not being resilient. So that means I'm not okay. Or,
Hmm.
and so it can feel like a pressure sort of thing. And so I think that, yeah, at times we need to go, you know what, it's actually okay to not be resilient. It's actually okay to just sit in bed and be fatigued. And I actually, you know, am not motivated today. And that's actually okay rather than having the pressure. But having said that, I think that um, with what you're saying about resilience is okay, how do you get through those difficult times? And I think that, I mean, for me, I feel like my relationship with God was revolutionized in that time and my relationship with myself. And so keep coming back to those things because they're both internal. They're not
Hmm.
external things that can shift and change. Coming back to the internal, then you've got like an anchor. You've got that thing to keep coming back to, that foundation that isn't going to shift and isn't going to
Hmm.
change. Whereas everything out there externally, relationships and circumstances and jobs and all of that can shift and change. And if we're putting I guess, our hope in those things, we're going to find that it's quite rocky. So just coming
Yes.
back to those anchors, I think, is the most important thing. And when you're feeling like unsettled and unstable, that was me coming back to those things. Even just little things, like I started going to look at the sunset every night, and that was an anchor for my day, and that just helped me to feel like stable and safe and okay, tomorrow's a new day, and just looking for some of that stability that
Hmm.
that's not going to change. That's something that's always going to be there.
Yeah. And my anchor was, okay, if I get to 3 p.m., I'll do this meditation for half an hour and I've got through
Mm-hmm.
half the day. And if I've got through half the day, then I can get through the rest of the day. And that
Yeah,
went on for so long. Even now, I would still occasionally just 3 p.m. is my time to go meditate. I don't know why.
yeah.
It just keeps
Get
going.
a
But
habit, don't you?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for years now. So with your relationship to God, so that can be quite loaded for some people as well, just in terms of religion and how they were brought up.
Mm,
So it doesn't matter if it's a God, what God it is, if it's the universe, the fact that you are willing to connect yourself to a higher power, even if it is the highest version of yourself, I think is really important. Just the act of surrendering and trusting.
mm.
Would you say that would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
agree with that. I work holistically, so I really do look at we all are spirit beings and we all
Hmm.
have a soul and we all have a body. And
Hmm.
so we've got to address all three
Yeah.
areas and actually look at, what's happening for us in
Yeah.
each of those areas. And one of the things that shifted for me as far as my view of God and my relationship with God was that He's actually not a performance God and He's not judging me. He
Hmm.
is just loving and accepting, and
Hmm.
He wants to comfort me in the mess. And that and seeing God as that is very safe to be able to
That,
approach a God who is
that's
loving and accepting.
yeah, that's a similar way to how I view my higher self connected to the universe.
Mm,
And not even that, not even to a higher power. I'm just thinking about the time whenever I was in hospital with my heart failure diagnosis
mm,
and I was told that I was dying. It was at that point I was like, okay, I'm surrendering. I'm in the right place. There's
mhm.
nobody better. I am in the specialty ward for cardiology here in Adelaide. I I can't do anything. There's nothing I can control apart
Yes,
from what they tell me to. And I did
yeah,
that. I did what I was told, and I just trusted that I was in the right hands. And
yes,
the act of surrendering was, I was like, yeah, I'm okay. I'm all right. And
mm,
I think that was a big reason why I handled it so well, because the need to control things, I find for myself anyway, can
mm,
be a real hindrance in my opinion of myself and
absolutely. Yeah.
the way I speak to myself. And if you're experiencing burnout, then that's no good. Like,
Mm.
do you find that a lot of people you see have control issues
Oh,
like
yes, for
that?
sure.
Yeah,
And perfectionism. They're very strong drivers.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that act of surrender really brings rest because you're like, I don't have to actually do something here. I don't have to perform. I'm not going to be able to make something happen.
yeah,
Just actually trusting that you're in the right place and that you're going to be led in your journey.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't have to get to a point where you're nearly dying to get to that. That is
No.
why I think a lot of us do what we do because, like, we don't want you to get anywhere near where we were because there is an
Yes,
easier way and there's an easier path. But thankfully, there are people like
absolutely.
Sally Ann here to help you whenever you get that far. So, I just another point on resilience that you were saying it was quite
Mhm.
loaded. I also find it quite loaded because people think that I'm incredibly resilient. And whenever tough times happen, they just expect me to, yep, okay, that's fine. I'll just get on with it. It's like, no, no, it's okay for me to
Mm,
not be resilient for a while. And I had to actually communicate that with people. And it got to the point where I
mm,
did not like that word because I was just expected to be so strong and like stiff upper lip sometimes. But
yes.
that was not it at all. It was an entire unfolding and sitting with myself the way you did, sitting with whatever it was I was experiencing, learning to accept it, learning to forgive it, learning to forgive myself. There were so many
Yeah,
steps in the
absolutely.
process and time required after the initial event to get to
Yes.
the resilient point. So
Yes, and it's
I
really
don't,
is about creating that space, and that's what I was saying before about it being a mess. It
yeah,
can be a mess,
yeah,
and really a lot of what I do and what I had to do in myself was actually accept my weaknesses and go, it's okay to be weak,
yeah,
rather than jump on this try harder, do better, just do it
yeah,
bandwagon that we're often encouraged to do. It's sometimes more important to get off the bandwagon
definitely.
and actually look, you know what? I am weak. It's okay to be weak. And it's okay to look at my weakness and then actually accept those weaknesses in
And
ourselves
and
to be able
everybody
to then move forward from that.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry about that. No, and everybody has weaknesses, no matter who they are, and no
Yes.
matter whether or not they would admit to them, they have
Yes.
weaknesses.
Yeah.
I just, sorry, this is a bit crass, and it reminds me of when I was a child. Whenever
Mm.
I was feeling down on myself, and people was like, you know, everybody goes to the toilet, and I was like, what? So it's like, you know, everybody
Yeah.
is human. That
Mm.
even though we are spirit beings, we are represented by humans.
Mm.
So we all have our strengths, we all have our weaknesses. Some of
Yes.
us work on our weaknesses, and I don't mean by trying to make them strengths, I mean by the acceptance and the forgiveness and the love,
Yes.
sending love to them. And it all comes back to that self acceptance and
Yes.
creating space, as you said. So, are there any? daily practices or rituals that you personally use to stay grounded and maintain your own well-being during the day, like every day?
Mm. I came across heart math breathing
Hmm.
very early in the piece, and I love that because you can do it anywhere. Um, and so I would use that several times a day.
Hmm.
I love anchoring myself with sunset. I definitely love prayer and meditation as well. And I also will check in with body scans because I was so disconnected. I still don't notice when I'm hungry. It's something that
Yeah.
I'm still learning. I eat regularly because
Hmm.
I've learned to do that, but I still don't notice hunger signals. So I just go, oh, it must be time to eat. So I am really trying to do, probably 2 or 3 body scans a day to
Okay.
check in with my body. Okay, what's happening? Am I feeling any tension somewhere? Am I noticing any hunger or thirst? What emotions am I noticing? Is there any anxiety? Is there any thoughts that are starting
Yeah.
to get intrusive that are happening? So, because once we've observed them and become aware of them, we've got a choice as to whether we want to engage in them
Yeah.
or not, so because we're not our thoughts come and go, and we can we don't have to buy into every single one of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, those body scans are definitely important as well. Yeah, and journaling. I
Yeah.
advocate for journal. Yeah.
So, as a wife and a mother and a grandmother, which I find hard to believe, by the way, how do you find now that you're able to balance those roles with your professional life? And what have you learned from this balancing act?
The balancing act was not playing. I had to learn boundaries, and I had to know what I wanted to then be able to communicate what I wanted. So I was stuck because I didn't know what I wanted, and I was because I was masking, I was too afraid to communicate it to people. So I've certainly learnt, okay, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, this is what I want, and I'm
Hmm.
still really learning that. But what I do know, I'm able to communicate. No, I'm actually can't do that now, and that's okay. People learn to respect your boundaries as well. And
Yeah.
just I deliberately block because I learned which things regenerate me. So I deliberately will block 2 hours a week for time alone because I can't function if I don't have time alone. I just
Yeah.
feel my anxiety going up and up and up if I don't have that space. And 10
Yeah.
minutes a day at least of just time to myself where I'm not interrupted, turn off the phone and no one can get hold of me. And,
Hmm.
and doing that more so if I notice that I need more of it. But yeah, so and getting the kids more involved in, okay, you're responsible for this rather than doing it all for them. Things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing, boundaries. It's so big. And it is, again, a total game changer whenever you figure out what you want and what you don't want, and the base level of what you're going to accept in life. It becomes so much easier to enforce those boundaries, but you
Mm.
will find that people who aren't used to that version of you will keep testing them. So you have to
Yeah.
reinforce the
And that's
boundaries.
about you holding them. Yeah. I heard
Yeah.
something interesting. I'm doing a neuropsychotherapy course for
Hmm.
my professional development at the moment. And she was saying, like, for example, if I pat my arm,
Hmm.
the lights in your brain, your motor lights will light up and say, oh, tapping arm. But because you have skin on your arm, you can differentiate, oh, that's not me, that's her that is feeling the arm tapping. Whereas when there's emotions involved, there's
Hmm.
no skin feedback saying, no, that's not me. So we actually can enter into that emotional field with other people and we can't differentiate the boundaries. So it is helpful for us to actually even visualize, a glass wall or a bubble around us that actually this is what separates my emotions from your emotions so that
Hmm.
we actually don't get so drained when if people are going through a difficult time, it's great to actually sit with them and support them. But if we actually become completely immersed in how difficult it is for them, then we're not going to have anything to give them either. We're just
No.
going to feel the same thing. And so I had to really learn that with boundaries with my family, particularly with the trauma after trauma. Like I couldn't get like completely immersed in that emotion. I had to actually separate myself and show compassion, but not take it on for
Hmm.
myself. And it's a really difficult thing, but
Yeah.
just some of those understanding that the boundaries have to be implemented, because they're not just going to happen naturally. It's
Yeah.
about us actually, I guess, being a bit intentional about them.
Yeah. And I find as well, if you consider yourself a highly sensitive person or an empath, doing those protection meditations and getting in that bubble or the behind the glass wall, they
Mm,
are so important and so valuable because they work. Well, they worked on me at
yes.
least, especially if you are susceptible to meditation. Not a lot of
Mm,
people believe in it, but
mm,
it is being able to sit still and quiet in your mind is it's what we were born to do. It is how we were supposed to be. So it
yes.
is so essential. So essential. So can I ask what are your future goals for your practice and your self-therapy resources? Do you have
Mm.
any upcoming projects or new directions that you're excited about?
The next thing that I've got in mind is when I had breast cancer, I actually trained as a hypnotherapist.
Oh, great.
So what I'd actually like to launch soon is a custom personalized hypnotherapy recording that people will fill out a questionnaire where we look at, okay, is it a habit, or is it a inner child trauma, or a limiting belief that
Hmm.
you would like to actually focus on, and then creating a custom hypnotherapy recording for them to listen to, like their best to listen to for 21 to 30 days to actually
Hmm.
get the best impact. But that's where I'm heading with that. And I'm also, because I said I had 2 self-therapy 1-hour sessions in my store. So
Hmm.
the third one on actually what are emotions and what do I do with them, is
Hmm.
the next one that I'm planning to release in the next
Great.
couple of weeks. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, they're so essential, those resources. And that's the kind of thing that people will go looking for before they're like, oh, okay, maybe I will reach out to a counselor. You know,
Mm.
you're just looking for solutions, maybe 9 o'clock at night when you can't actually get in contact with a counselor. But
Yes.
it's just fantastic that you have just such a broad selection to target whoever needs help, really. Now, whenever it comes to working one-on-one with you, how would somebody get in touch with you?
You can book online through my website. So I've just got my booking system there.
Yeah,
Yes.
no
And I
problem.
can
I'll
do
link
it
that.
online. Yeah, as well. And I think one of the things with the self-therapy is when we were going through a lot of the family trauma,
Mhm.
and people needed counselling, but we were also financially not doing great because I also wasn't working. And so wanting to create something that would bridge that gap for people who can't afford therapy, are on a
Mhm.
long waiting list and in crisis, and they can't get in to see somebody for 2 or 3 months, or
Yeah,
they're time poor, like a mum who just hasn't got any space between work and kids to get out and see somebody. So I
yeah,
saw that there was a gap that that could maybe be filled by having resources that people can access. Yeah, that's
yeah.
budget
Fantastic.
friendly, and yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So I just that is my path. So I went on looking for like printable resources because
Mm,
I read that creating a gratitude journal would be good. So I went and I found somebody like yourself. Now
mhm.
this would have been 11 years ago. So there isn't
Yeah, yeah,
the plethora of uh, resources available that there is now. So,
yes.
but it was fantastic. Once I started digging deep and started seeing results within myself and how I was feeling, I was like, you know what, I can accelerate this. I can heal faster if I just talk to somebody and go to meditation classes on a Thursday, just exploring the different
Yeah,
modalities that were
absolutely.
available to
But
me
it
to
can be a
heal.
starting place. I see them really as starting place.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, I will definitely be linking both your website for your booking page and also those self-therapy resources because they would be so helpful. So thank you so much for joining me today. That was a fantastic chat.
Thank you. It was lovely chat.
Thank you. Yeah. I hope you enjoyed that wee chat. I would love for you to comment below and let me know what your biggest takeaway from this conversation was. It was an absolute joy, as always. If you are watching on YouTube, please make sure to like and subscribe and share with your friends. Similar, if you are listening as a podcast, wherever you listen to your podcast, please rate and review because it really helps us grow. Thank you so much for listening. See you next week.